had the manifestation of Ra, the unveiling of the company of the gamers. Every gamer is a duelist. That was a crappy quote. Hello everyone, and welcome back down to the crossroads. Today we are showing off my invocation deck. Now, I built this deck because when I found out about this, I just got giddy. I'm a pretty big fan of Aleister Crowley, and when I found out that he's a Yugioh card, I was like, what? No freaking way. Why has no one told me about this? Why did it take so long for everyone to tell me that there was a gosh darn Aleister Crowley archetype? So I built this with a little bit of a twist from what normal people are doing. It's not that big of a twist, but we do something a little bit different. And I want to show you what I have put together here. So guys, let's get on into it. Okay. First off, we have our creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call them. The mark of the beast. Oh my gosh, it is him, the wickedest man ever to live. We have Aleister Crowley, the Invoker. Now, this card is pretty freaking sick. The story with him is that he's like a little, wizard man. He was like a real good wizard man, but he found a book that, that was not that good. And that book told him how to do really crazy stuff. And so, he did that crazy stuff, but they said, hey, if you're gonna do crazy stuff, at least be smart and don't, mix yourself with your own attribute. And he's like, screw that nonsense. And he did, but that's what we'll get into later. First, let's see what the card does. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one fusion monster you control. It gains 1,000 attack. If this card is normal summoned or flip summoned, you can add one invocation spell to your hand. That's the important thing right here, because the whole deck runs around a fusion spell called Invocation, and we'll show you what that does in just a little bit. Next up, and this is how I'm running the deck. I'm running Liliana, the Magistus of Vera. Now, I'm running Magistus because I feel like it's a more pure version of the deck. I know I could have run Shadalls, I could have run Witchcrafters, but I personally like the Magistus. I think they're fun. And it kind of ties into the book a little bit idea, they use books. Most of their spells look like books. One of them does, I guess. If this card is normal or special summon, you can activate one of these effects. You can add a Magistus spell from your deck to your hand, or you can return one of your banished level 4 spell caster monsters to your graveyard. You can banish this card, then target one Magistus monster you control with one Magistus monster from your graveyard, except a level 4 monster. And that's pretty good because we're going to be equipping a lot of our cards from our extra deck onto the creatures that we're going to run. So this helps us recycle them if they do die, because most of our monsters are regrettably quite weak when it comes to the spellcasters. But don't worry, we'll be able to equip some stuff and make something really good out of this. Next up, I have a playset of Endymion, the Magistus of Mastery. Endymion. Is that a quote to something? That name feels familiar. Blake, Google away at what that means. But I read what the card is. You can target one Magistus monster you control, equipped it with one Magistus monster from your extra deck, and then you can target one face-up spell you control, destroy it. And if you do, draw one card. Then place one card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. You can only use that effect once per turn. This card is going to be one of the cards that help us cling stuff onto other things, which is really cool. I recommend saving him until you have some bigger creatures out if you can, so that way you can equip good stuff to good stuff. Alright, well, that is this, gentleman. Now let's move on to one of my favorite cards on the deck, and this is probably the reason I run Magistus, is because it's Crowley, the Magistus of Grimoires. I mean, come on. Crowley, Aleister? That's freaking hilarious. I love that. And I like how it looks kind of like Aleister. I don't know if it's supposed to be Aleister, because they're pretty gosh darn similar on the arts. I mean, I see it. Okay, you can send one spellcaster monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard. Special summon this card. You can declare one attribute. This card becomes that attribute until end of turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Magistus monster you control. Equip it with one Magistus monster from your graveyard, except a level 4 monster. You can only use each of this effect once per turn. The big thing that this right here is going to be doing is changing attributes, which we really appreciate, because our fusion cards actually rely on us having different attributes on the field in order to get into them. And this helps fix that little problem, and it also does something nice for the Magistus cards on top of it. Next up, we have Zoro. You can target one Magistus monster you control. Equip it with one Magistus monster from your extra deck. If this card becomes equipped with a Magistus monster card, you can special summon one level 4 spellcaster monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, except this card. But its effects are negated. You can only use each of these effects once per turn. So this is more of the same, but we enjoy that. Okay, next up, we have a playset of Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. This is where the spice that I said I added came in. I thought the spellbooks were an absolutely fantastic addition to the deck. Both flavor and power-wise, I can preach for their success. And I don't run many of them. I don't go crazy. I only have 2 different spellbook cards, but trust you me, they're absolutely fantastic. This card right here, when it's normal or flip summon, you can add a spellbook from your deck to your hand. And it's no shock, we're just going to spoil it right now, what we're going to do. We're going to be getting this little bit. We'll get into that later. I'm not spoiling too much. And you're going to be using this to do that effect. Alright guys, now let's get into our spells. And we'll start off with the card I teased in Spellbook of Knowledge. Spellbook of Knowledge is a pretty good card. Send to the grave either one spellcaster monster you control or one other spellbook card in your hand or face up on the field, except this card. And if you do, draw 2 cards. You can only use this once per turn. So this is like a really good pot of greed. And we're going to use this card to sacrifice because it plays into the hand, sack, and play. Or, this is also really good just to load Crawley up. You put Crawley in the graveyard, or Alistair in the graveyard, and he's still going to be able to be used for the invocation spell because the invocation spell works in the graveyard. So there's no sacrifice in using this card. Absolutely great add-in, in my opinion. And speaking of that spell, we're getting into our 3 copies of Invocation. Fusion 1 fusion monster from your extra deck among monsters from your hand as fusion material. If summoning an invoked monster fusion this way, you can also banish monsters from your field or either player's graveyard as fusion material. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one of your banished Alistair the Invoker cards, shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, add that monster to your hand. You can only use this effect of Invocation once per turn. So, like I said, you're going to go ahead and use the Spellbook card to put Crowley in the graveyard. You can still use this to invoke with Crowley if you're using it for one of your invoked cards, which you are. And then you still got the draw 2 off of that. That's absolutely fantastic. And then when he's banished, if you just used him from the graveyard, you can shuffle this card into your deck, get that to your hand, and guess what Crowley does? He's going to come out and play and search this out. It's an absolutely beautiful, endless cycle. I love it. Okay, now we have our 3 copies of Magical Meltdown, which constantly is getting its ability negated. Freaking Ash Blossom, every time I play. When this card is activated, add 1 Alistair the Invoker from your deck to your hand. The activation of cards and effects that include an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent's card and effects cannot activate when a monster is fusion summoned this way. You can only activate this once per turn. We're here to get Alistair to our hand, and that's what it's here for, so I appreciate it. Mr. Crowley. Alright, and last up, we have the Book of the Law, which I actually have, like, literally right here. It's funny. Here, let's read something. This card does tribute one invoked monster, special summon one invoked monster from your extra deck with different original attribute from that monster. You can only activate the Book of the Law per turn. So here's what this is going to do. You have an invoked monster. We're going to trade it up. We're going to use this to get a different attribute out. Something that'll be a little bit better. A lot of decks are running this. I ran it because of flavor, personally, but it's a good card. Like, why are we ignoring this? We're just supposed to go on the whims and whimsies of the attributes that we have out or hope the opponent? No, I'm going to take some damn control. I'll do as I will. Shall be the whole of the law. And I will follow that. Gosh dang, I'm going to use that. Now let's get into our Magistus supports. Starting off with Magistus Vita. Verita. Vroom. Target one level 4 or lower Magistus monster in your graveyard. Special summon that. If a Magistus card in your spell or traps card zone would be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. You can only use each of the effects once per turn. So that's mostly here just to help combo out more, like, spam. We need more Magistus out, but that extra defense does help from time to time. So it's an okay card. That's why it's a 2 of for me. And now next, we have Magistus Invocation, which is pretty cool. I like the art on this one. I think it's like, not Alistair, but I think that's Crowley. Pretty cool. And what this card is going to do for us, fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand as material, including a spellcaster monster. If summoning a Magistus fusion monster this way, you can also use monsters from your spell and trap zones that are equipped to a Magistus monster. You can only activate one of this card per turn. So you can use the set cards to fusion summon something out, which is absolutely fantastic because we're getting some use. They're not exactly banger of the cards, so this actually gives us use to get something bigger, better out. There's a move with this. And, you know, if you do absolutely need to use it to get an invocated monster out, do it. Okay. And now, next up, I have 3 copies of Magistus. It's a triangle. We're over that. We've done our triangle days. No more triangles. Target one Magistus monster you control. Equipped it with one Magistus monster except a level 4 monster from your extra deck or face up field on the field. If you have at least one each Magistus Fusion Synchro XYZ link in your graveyard, you can equip this one non-Magistus Fusion Synchro X. Okay, pretty much what this is actually freaking doing is just allowing me to equip something real quick, which is really nice. We need to get something from our extra deck, but that's pretty much what it's here for. I said no more triangles. They insist on triangles, damn it. Alright, this is the Trismagistus. It's a book. It's the book card I was talking about earlier. We went through a bunch of stuff not to see a book. I'm upset. The first time each Magistus monster equips with an equip card would be destroyed by battle this turn. It is not destroyed. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. During your main phase, you can special summon one level 4 spellcaster monster from your hand, and you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon any number of Magistus monsters with different names from your hand. Now that's pretty good. I don't get that ability off very often. I'm usually using it here to get my special summon out for my first turn, and it protects like some equipped monsters, which is pretty nice overall. So that's that there for you. And then the last card we have is just a copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn allows you to draw 30 cards, deal 5 million damage to the opponent. If an opponent would lose the game by this effect, you can slap them straight in the face for being a noob. You can only activate the effects of Monster Reincarnation Reborn the Monster of like life once per turn. So it's mostly just here to round out the deck, and to, if I get really angry at the opponent, I just play this real quick so that way I can give him a good slap. So with that out of the way, let's get into our spell, our extra deck. Okay, first up. The Magistus Glass Goddess, which kind of gives me like Appaloosa vibes. Does it to you? No? Show a picture of Appaloosa. I don't remember what she looks like. While this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. You can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 level 4 or higher spellcaster monster in your graveyard. Add it to your hand. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can target 1 Magistus card in your spell or trap zone, and 1 spell or trap your opponent controls. Destroy them both. So this is going to give you extra attacks, and it gives you the opportunity to pop some of their spells and traps just for sacking it, which is definitely worth the doing. It's one of the better of the equipments that we have. Next up, we have Verminer. God, I've really just given up on trying. The Magistus Divinity Dragon. Alright, we can't summon this. Just want that out of the way. But we can equip it. While this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by your opponent's spell or trap cards. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. If this synchro summon card is destroyed, you can destroy all your face-up opponents. And we're not doing that ability. I just said we can't do that ability. We don't have any tuners. You can't actually play this. Fun fact. But it's there for the equipped. You can play this all you want, though. Go right ahead. We have Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maid. And if another Magistus monster is normal or special summon, while you control this monster, except during the damage calculation, you can target 1 of those monsters. Equip this card you control to it. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can add 1 Magistus monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each of the effects of this card once per turn. You can only special summon this card once per turn. So it's pretty decent. You just like use your normal summon to special summon this, use a special summon to get another card out, and equip this to this. It's pretty decent. You can maybe even do that in your second main if you want to just get some ping damage in with her, but I wouldn't recommend it because she's an 800. This is a utility card. What are you doing? Alistair, the Invoker of Madness. I love this. So like Alistair ends up fusioning with the dark attribute, which he was told, bro, probably oughta not. But then he becomes a monster, which we'll see in a second. And when he becomes a monster, he's like, nah, I'm a good wizard, check this out. And he swabbity swooblies back into this form, his new form, where he's more human-like. And then he goes off to kind of like start a school or something. I don't really know. And he's in a jar. That's your lore bit for the day. 2 monsters with different types and different attributes. That's what you need. This card's name becomes Alistair the Invoker while on the field or in the graveyard. If a monster is fusion summoned while you control a monster except during the damage calculation, you can discard 1 card. And if you do, add 1 invocation or Book of the Law from your deck to your hand. If this face-up card you control leaves the battlefield of an opponent's card effect, you can add 1 Omega Summoning from your deck to your hand. We don't have Omega Summoning. We do not run Omega Summoning. I'm sorry. I wanted to use most of the Alistair support. I don't remember exactly what that one does. Maybe put a picture up. But I remember I didn't really like it. This card right here, Awawawawasawu, the Magistus Spells Spirit. He's got spirit spells, or he is a spirit spell. Honestly, he looks like a dreidel. Yeah. While this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster gains plus 1,000 during the main phase. Quick effect. You can target one face-up monster on the field. Equip this card to it. And if that card is equipped to an opponent's monster, you're going to take control of that. Also, it cannot activate its effects. You can only use the effect of this card once per turn. So, something out on the field that you enjoy? I decided to steal a winged Karibo last time. And I think it just about won me the game. Yeah, probably not the best use. Maybe don't use this on a winged Karibo. But this is pretty cool for snaggling someone's monster and then like getting the win because you have a giant beat stick. Speaking of giant beat sticks, we're getting into the Invoked stuff. This card does absolutely nothing. Invoked, he's a 3,000 attack beat stick, and he's here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and he's all out of ass. Wait. Alright, one copy of Invoked Purgatorio. Purgatorio, by the way, is a book written by Dante Alighieri, and it is the middle of Dante's Inferno and Dante's Paradiso, and it's like him going through Purgatory, and Purgatory is a big mountain, and people have to do things on this mountain to get good, because they're scrubs. This card gains 200 attack for each card your opponent controls. Can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to that critter. So, this is here to wipe their board out, and it's funny. Invoked Elisbrium, which is our boss monster and was put in the wrong place, but forget it, I guess. It takes one invoked monster and one monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. Must be fusion summoned with the above fusion materials while face up on the field. This card is also all attributes. Once per turn. Quick effect. You can target one invoked monster you control or in your graveyard. Banish it all monsters from your opponent's control with the same attribute as that. And banish all monsters with the same attribute as your opponent. So you can wipe their field if they're like dedicated to an attribute in some way, shape, or form, which is really cool. Last up, we have next up, we have Invoked Cactus. Invoked Cactus. Jesus Christ. Cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. This card can attack while in face down defense position, and if it does, apply attack for its damage calculation. I mean, it's just there to be defensive in a wall, but yeah. Okay, last up, and I remember why I left this last. This is the monster Alistair turns into, because this is the dark one, and he shouldn't have done that, but he did do that, and he's a bad person for it. Each player can only attempt to activate one monster each per turn. Each player can only attack with one monster during each battle phase. Alright, that's the deck, guys. This was a way longer video, but I knew a lot about this deck. I played this deck quite a bit. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it tickled your fancy and got you in the mood to maybe build yourself your own invocation deck. But without further ado, guys, you all have yourself a merry little whatever, and I will catch you on the next one.